Everyone, so I was curious what the benchmark difference between my new M5 MacBook Pro with the Max chip 18-core CPU, 40-core GPU would be versus my outgoing M3 Max, which I forgot the specs, but they're right here. I do a lot of content creation in DaVinci Resolve, and there's starting to be more and more AI tools which really benefit from more horsepower, and so that's what we're going to find out today. Do stay tuned to the end of this video, though, because I do have a bonus comparison, which is a little unfair, but honestly, I thought it would be fun to produce, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So stay tuned to the end, but for now, sit back and relax, and let's take a look at DaVinci Resolve's capabilities between an M5 Max and the M3 Max. All right, so let's kick things off here with the real-time playback performance of 8K Cinematic Haze. If you've never used this feature, it's pretty cool. It adds a haze in the background, does it using depth maps. It's really impressive, but it's hard on the older models. You can see here the M3 is 10 frames per second, but the M5 is holding true at real-time playback. This is a great start for the M5. Next up then is 8K Magic Mask. So unlike the first test where we had the desire to play back in real time being the sort of benchmark, here we have a scenario where we have a really heavy operation, in this case a 4-point mask on a human subject, again on an 8K timeline with 8K footage, and we are going to then track the progress of this object as it moves throughout the scene so that you can create a mask of it when you're done. It's a really heavy operation. Again, this is probably the worst case scenario because it's 8K footage, but as you can see here, the M3 is managing 4 frames per second, whereas the M5 is nearly 3 times faster at 12 frames per second. To be clear, this is one of those operations where it's less important to me in terms of speed than like real-time playback items, but you do feel anything that's 3 times faster than something else. And so the goal here would be faster than real time, but this 12 frames per second right here for a lot of my work is going to be more than fast enough. And so another great result for the M5. All right, so next up is Audio Transcribe. So this is a really neat feature if you do a lot of sort of off the top of the head vlogging, podcasting, that sort of thing. It takes a clip and it transcribes the audio, and as a result gives you a script which you can then use to click through your clip very quickly, like skip through to the various sections, and you can even make edits to remove repeated words, scan for words, and so on. It's a really great feature, and as far as performance goes, I think both machines do a fantastic job here. So the M3 at almost 20x real-time speed means that you're going to be chewing through really long clips in not a lot of time. Obviously, the M5 is faster here at 26x. As a 26-minute clip, that means we're going to finish the whole test in about a minute. Great results, though, I would say, from both machines. In other words, if you're doing a lot of audio transcribe and you really need the extra speed of the M5, it's great, but I don't think the M3 is a slouch here either. All right, on the other side of the audio spectrum is speech generation. I don't use this feature a ton myself, but it is really handy and can be like a real lifesaver if you have like accessibility issues or just problems speaking in front of camera. In this particular test, unfortunately, I didn't capture the M3's performance, so it was about 20% slower. So the whole test took about 1:20. As you're going to see here, the M5 took about a minute to do it. The one thing you may notice about a lot of these AI tests is there's sort of like a warm-up period. I do not actually know, because the M5 was new and the M3 had never used these features before, I don't actually know if that was like an initial startup cost and your sort of results will be a little bit faster in terms of that startup. But as you can see here, for doing, in this case, an 1,800 word script in about a minute, nothing to sneeze at. Great result again for the M5. All right, finally for delivery, we're going to check H.264 and H.265. The big thing that we're looking for in this particular test is how many frames per second we're encoding at. As you can see at the top here, the M5 does a really respectable 70 frames per second, and the M3 also really respectable 50 frames per second. Now this is H.264 that we start off with here. We're also going to take a look at H.265. Unsurprisingly, the results are identical between the two. So as we even out, the M3 is going to be cranking along at 50 and the M5 at 70 once again. Two observations about this. I have personally never found the export speed of any of the M-class machines to be too slow. 50 is totally fine. I usually just set and walk away when I do deliveries anyway. But if you're in a higher, sort of turnaround situation, the 70, frames of the M5 is great. That said, One of the nice things about newer hardware is sometimes it's quieter, and that was absolutely the case with my M5. It is much quieter, both during these exports and a lot of the other tests that we saw before. It's just simply harder to make the fan on the M5 spin up, which is great for quieter working environments. All right, so let's wrap things up with our bonus benchmark. So obviously in this test, we're comparing the M3 to the M5. What is this mystery machine or card? It is the mighty RTX 5090. Now I realize this is a little bit unfair. The card itself cost almost as much as the laptop did, and hey, the laptop has a screen, but it is a good benchmark to see what the state-of-the-art performance with the cards are. So, starting off with our benchmark suite here, we're going to start with the Haze. Recall the M3 was a little bit pokey at around 10 frames per second. We're able to go real-time with the M5, but with the 5090, we're able to go to real-time in 8K, but also real-time in 12K as well. Obviously, if you're not doing those higher resolutions, that just means that you could stack more effects and have more real-time playback. So, really solid result. For AI mask, we had a huge improvement, 3x over the M3, but with the 5090, we're at 32 frames per second. This is one of those tests where real-time speed makes a huge difference. For Transcribe, it's actually a little bit closer here. So recall we had 20 and 27. At 34x, it's faster than the Max, but not by amount that even with the M3, you really feel like you're being slowed down by. Same can be said for generation, 34 seconds on the M5, and then we had 20 seconds on the RTX 5090. Finally, for the export process, this is where we're comparing the H.265 and 264. It was the same on the PC in terms of the speed for both. We had a 150 frame per second result with the 5090. Obviously, if you're doing a lot of exporting, you are going to feel those speed gains pretty significantly. So, where does that leave us with the Apple comparison? Well, the way I would put it is 8K is becoming more commonplace. Heck, even the action camera, I just bought the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, I believe it's called. That shoots 8K, and yeah, it's low bit rate, but it's still 8K. And so as more of us discover the joys of reframing and just, sort of grabbing content that's probably more future-proof, I do find important to be able to work with those higher resolutions. And my M3, unfortunately, even with 4K content at RAW, was starting to feel a little bit long in the tooth. And as you can see by the numbers here, we weren't able to do things like real-time playback. The M5 completely resolves most of my issues. I can do real-time playback with heavy effects, and even for things like AMS that, aren't as fast as a 5090, are still plenty fast for me. In addition to that, the M5 is just a much more pleasant machine to use. I find it hitches and latches less in the interface, and it runs cooler and is usually quieter too. The fan just literally doesn't spin up as much. So for me, the M5 has been a huge win. Now, obviously, when you toss in the 5090 here, price aside, it is a really powerful machine if you have one in your PC. However, the cost again is really prohibitive, and that does mean that you're working in the PC space. I'm more of a Mac person for creative, but it was fun to see what the state of the art is and where we may end up. So, thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next comparison.